What if solitude is not a sign of emptiness, but proof that you are finally strong enough to meet yourself? Many people fear solitude. They avoid silence. They fill every empty moment with noise, distraction, or the presence of others. Society often tells us that being alone means something is missing, that happiness must come from companionship, validation, or constant connection. But Buddhism teaches something very different. Solitude is not emptiness, it is space. Space to hear yourself, space to rest your nervous system, space to reconnect with what truly matters. If you are living alone or feeling alone, even surrounded by people, this message is for you. This is not about isolation or withdrawal from the world. It is about learning how to be at peace with yourself, how to cultivate inner stability, and how to transform solitude into a source of strength, clarity, and quiet joy. In this video, you will hear 10 Buddhist rules for living alone and being deeply happy. Listen slowly. Let the words settle. Let this be a gentle conversation with your inner world. Let us begin. Rule 1. Stop treating being alone as a failure. One of the deepest sources of suffering around solitude comes from the story we tell ourselves about it. We are taught, subtly and constantly, that being alone means something went wrong, that you were not chosen, that you failed to keep someone, that you are incomplete without another person beside you. Over time, this belief sinks into the mind and turns solitude into shame. Buddhism invites you to see this differently. Being alone is not evidence of failure. It is simply a condition of this moment. The Buddha himself spent long periods in solitude, not because he was rejected, but because solitude allowed clarity to arise. When you are alone, there is no audience, no performance, no need to explain yourself. You can finally stop adjusting your behavior to fit someone else's expectations. Living alone does not mean your life is lacking. It means your life is uncluttered. Ask yourself gently, who told me that being alone is something to fix? When did I start believing that my worth depends on company? Much of this belief comes from comparison. You look at other people's lives, relationships, families, social circles, and your mind creates a story. They are complete. I am behind. But Buddhism teaches that comparison is a form of suffering because it pulls you out of your own direct experience and into imagined hierarchies. Your path is not missing anything, it is simply different. When you stop labeling solitude as a problem, it transforms. Silence becomes supportive instead of threatening. Time becomes spacious instead of heavy. You begin to notice that being alone gives you something rare in this world: uninterrupted presence. You can wake up without negotiating the day. You can eat without conversation filling every pause. You can feel your emotions without managing how they affect others. This is not loneliness. This is intimacy with yourself. The first rule, then, is simple but powerful. Stop judging your life for being quiet. Stop apologizing to yourself or anyone else for the shape your life has taken. Peace does not arrive when you add more people. It arrives when you stop fighting the moment you are in. Being alone is not the absence of love. It is often the beginning of a deeper one. Rule 2. Learn the difference between solitude and loneliness. Many people believe solitude and loneliness are the same. Buddhism makes a clear distinction. Loneliness is resistance. Solitude is acceptance. Loneliness arises when the mind says, "This should not be happening." When you are physically alone but mentally reaching outward, craving connection, replaying memories, imagining conversations that are not there. Loneliness is not about being alone. It is about being at war with aloneness. Solitude, on the other hand, is when you stop resisting, when you allow the moment to be exactly as it is, when you turn your attention inward instead of outward. You can be surrounded by people and feel deeply lonely, and you can be alone and feel deeply whole. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes not from conditions, but from attachment to how we think conditions should be. If you believe happiness can only exist when someone else is present, then every quiet moment will feel like deprivation. But when you begin to see solitude as a teacher, everything changes. Solitude teaches you how your mind behaves when it is not distracted, what emotions arise when there is no one to impress, which thoughts repeat when there is silence. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. The mind will try to escape. It will reach for noise, for stimulation, for old habits. This is natural. Do not judge it. Just notice. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding feeling right now? What does silence reveal that noise hides? Loneliness tightens the heart. Solitude softens it. Loneliness says, "I am missing something." Solitude says, "I am here." And presence, simple presence, is the doorway to peace. You do not cure loneliness by adding people. You cure it by learning how to be with yourself without fear. When solitude is embraced, it becomes nourishing. You begin to hear your own rhythms. Your breath slows. Your thoughts lose urgency. You realize that much of your previous exhaustion came not from being alone, but from constantly trying not to be. The second rule is this: do not confuse the pain of resistance with the reality of solitude. Solitude itself is neutral. It becomes peaceful the moment you stop demanding that it be something else. Rule 3. Create a gentle daily rhythm just for yourself. When you live alone, structure becomes an act of self-respect. Without external schedules or shared routines, the days can blur together. Time can feel either too empty or strangely rushed. Buddhism teaches the importance of rhythm, not rigid discipline, but gentle consistency that supports the mind. A daily rhythm anchors you. This does not mean filling every hour with tasks. It means creating small, reliable touchpoints that give your day a sense of intention. When you know what your mornings feel like, when your evenings soften, when your body rests, the mind feels safe. Begin simply. Wake up at a similar time each day if you can. Let the first moments be quiet. Even 5 minutes of stillness, sitting, breathing, looking out a window, signals to your nervous system that the day begins with presence, not urgency. Eat regular meals, not rushed, not distracted. When you live alone, it is easy to eat mindlessly or irregularly. Buddhism treats eating as a meditation. Each meal is a chance to care for the body that carries you through this life. Include movement, gentle movement, walking, stretching, slow exercise, not to improve yourself, but to inhabit yourself. When you move with awareness, loneliness loosens its grip because you are grounded in sensation. And create an evening ritual, something that tells your body it is safe to rest, dimming the lights, making tea, reading, sitting quietly before sleep. These small acts replace the comfort people often seek from others with a deeper, steadier comfort, self-attunement. Living alone does not mean living without support. It means becoming your own stable presence. Buddhism does not ask you to control your life. It asks you to care for it. A gentle rhythm is not about productivity. It is about kindness. When your days have a shape, your mind relaxes. When your mind relaxes, happiness no longer feels distant or dependent. It becomes something you touch in ordinary moments. The third rule reminds you, happiness grows in environments of care, and you are capable, fully capable, of creating that environment for yourself. Rule 4. Make peace with silence instead of escaping it. Silence is often the hardest companion when you live alone. Not because it is harmful, but because it removes distractions. In silence, there is nothing to hide behind, no conversation to steer away from uncomfortable thoughts, no noise to drown out emotions that have been waiting patiently to be felt. Many people try to escape silence. They keep the television on, they scroll endlessly, they fill the room with sound so they do not have to listen to what is happening inside. But Buddhism teaches that silence is not an enemy. Silence is a mirror. When you sit in silence, the mind may initially become restless. Thoughts appear more clearly. Memories surface. Emotions you postponed begin to speak. This is not a sign that silence is bad. It is a sign that awareness has increased. The Buddha taught that clarity arises when we stop running. Silence allows you to observe your mind without interference. You begin to notice patterns, how often you worry, how quickly you judge yourself, how frequently the mind jumps to the future or returns to the past. This observation is not meant to criticize, it is meant to free you. Ask yourself, what arises when everything is quiet? What am I afraid I might hear? Silence does not demand answers. It only asks for presence. When you stop escaping silence, something unexpected happens. The noise inside slowly settles. The mind, like water that has been stirred, begins to clear on its own. You realize that many of your fears were amplified by distraction, not caused by solitude. Buddhism does not encourage forcing silence. It encourages befriending it. Start gently. A few minutes each day without music, without screens, without conversation, just sitting, breathing, allowing. Silence becomes a refuge when you trust it. Living alone gives you access to silence that many people never experience. This is not a punishment. It is a rare opportunity. In silence, you reconnect with intuition. You sense what feels right and what feels draining. You hear the quiet guidance that gets lost in constant noise. Peace does not always arrive as happiness. Sometimes it arrives as stillness. The fourth rule is this: stop treating silence as something to escape. Let it teach you. Let it soften you. Let it show you that you are capable of sitting with life exactly as it is, without needing to fill every space. Rule 5. Stop waiting for someone else to make life meaningful. One of the most subtle traps of living alone is postponement. The mind says, when I meet someone, life will begin. Or, once I share this with someone, it will matter more. Slowly, meaning is pushed into an imagined future that depends on another person's arrival. Buddhism gently challenges this belief. Meaning does not wait for companionship. Meaning is created through presence. When you wait for someone else to make life feel real, you place your happiness outside yourself. You give another person the role of completing your experience. This creates dependency even before a relationship exists. Ask yourself honestly, what parts of life am I postponing? What joys am I withholding from myself? You do not need an audience to live fully. A walk matters even if no one joins you. A meal is still nourishing even if you eat alone. Growth still happens even if no one witnesses it. The Buddha taught that fulfillment arises from alignment, not attachment. When your actions align with your values, peace follows naturally. This alignment does not require approval or participation from others. Living alone gives you the freedom to design a life that reflects who you truly are, not who you need to be to belong. Instead of asking, "Who will share this with me?" try asking, "What brings calm to my heart? What feels meaningful right now?" When you engage fully with your own life, relationships, if and when they come, become additions, not solutions. They enhance what already exists instead of filling a void. Buddhism teaches that craving creates suffering. Craving companionship can quietly turn solitude into dissatisfaction. But contentment arises when you stop waiting for conditions to change before allowing yourself to live. Your life is not on hold. This moment is not a placeholder. You are allowed to enjoy your days exactly as they are. You are allowed to find beauty without witnesses. When meaning comes from within, it becomes stable. It no longer disappears when others leave. The 5th rule invites you to stop postponing your life. Stop waiting. Begin where you are. Meaning grows the moment you treat your own presence as enough. Rule 6. Care for your mind as gently as you would care for a child. When you live alone, your inner dialogue becomes louder. There is no external voice to interrupt self-criticism, no distraction to soften harsh thoughts. Many people become their own most relentless critic in solitude. Buddhism teaches compassion, not only toward others, but toward the mind itself. Your mind is not an enemy to conquer. It is something to care for. Notice how you speak to yourself when you are alone. Are your thoughts kind, or do they constantly evaluate, compare, and criticize? Living alone magnifies these patterns, not to punish you, but to reveal where kindness is needed. Ask yourself, would I speak this way to someone I love? Would I say these words to a child? If the answer is no, it is time to soften. The Buddha taught that suffering increases when the mind turns against itself. Inner peace grows when you replace judgment with understanding. This does not mean ignoring unhelpful habits. It means addressing them with patience instead of aggression. When loneliness arises, do not scold yourself for feeling it. When sadness appears, do not rush to fix it. Sit with it as you would with a child who is upset, present, calm, and patient. Self-care in solitude is not indulgence, it is maintenance. Rest when you are tired. Eat nourishing food. Speak kindly to yourself, especially when no one else is listening. Living alone means you are responsible for the emotional environment you inhabit every day. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes what it repeatedly hears. If it hears criticism, it tightens. If it hears kindness, it relaxes. The sixth rule reminds you, your relationship with yourself is the longest relationship of your life. Tend to it gently. Peace does not come from perfection. It comes from compassion practiced daily, especially in moments of quiet. Rule 7. Learn to enjoy your own presence without distraction. This rule is a turning point. Many people can tolerate being alone, but few truly enjoy their own presence. Distraction becomes a constant companion: phones, media, endless stimulation. These habits prevent boredom, but they also prevent intimacy with yourself. Buddhism invites you to experience something deeper: contentment without stimulation. Ask yourself, can I sit with myself without needing entertainment? Can I be here without needing to escape? Enjoying your own presence does not mean forcing positivity. It means allowing yourself to exist without constant input. When you stop distracting yourself, you begin to feel grounded. Your nervous system calms. Your attention returns to the body. Simple moments become fulfilling. Drinking tea slowly, watching the sky change, sitting quietly after a long day. These moments are not empty. They are full of awareness. The Buddha taught that joy arises naturally when the mind is no longer chasing stimulation. This joy is quiet. It does not demand excitement. It does not depend on novelty. It feels steady and warm. When you learn to enjoy your own presence, something profound shifts. You stop fearing solitude. You stop filling space unnecessarily. You realize that peace was never missing. It was just drowned out by noise. Living alone becomes a sanctuary instead of a challenge. The seventh rule is an invitation. Practice being with yourself without distraction. Not all the time. Just a little more each day. Let boredom pass. Let stillness deepen. You may discover that the person you have been avoiding is someone worth spending time with. Rule 8. Release comparison and walk your own quiet path. Comparison is one of the most powerful thieves of peace, especially when you live alone. When you spend more time with yourself, the mind naturally looks outward for reference points. You notice other people's lives, their relationships, their families, their milestones, and without realizing it, you begin measuring your own life against images that were never meant to define you. Buddhism teaches that comparison is a form of ignorance, not because you are wrong for doing it, but because it distracts you from the truth of your own path. Your life is not behind. It is not incomplete. It is simply unfolding according to different conditions. Every human life moves through causes and effects that cannot be compared fairly. Some people walk with companions early, some later, some never in the way society expects. None of these paths are superior. They are simply different expressions of being human. When you compare, you suffer twice. First, you imagine a version of life you think you should have. Second, you reject the life that is actually happening. Ask yourself gently, who am I comparing myself to? What story am I telling about what my life should look like? Social conditioning teaches us to see happiness as visible proof. Photos, celebrations, partnerships, noise. But Buddhism points inward. It reminds you that peace is quiet. Fulfillment is subtle. Meaning is not always obvious from the outside. Living alone often places you outside the dominant narrative, and that can feel uncomfortable. But it can also be liberating. You are not required to perform your life for approval. You are not required to reach milestones on anyone else's timeline. The Buddha left behind a life that looked successful by society's standards. He chose a path that appeared strange, lonely, even unnecessary to others. But it was the path that led to awakening. Your quiet path is not a mistake. When you release comparison, you regain energy. Energy that was wasted, measuring, judging, and doubting. That energy returns to your body as calm, to your mind as clarity, to your heart as self-trust. Instead of asking, why don't I have what they have? Try asking, what is this life asking of me? What kind of growth is available right now? Comparison keeps you looking sideways. Wisdom invites you to look inward. Living alone gives you the chance to walk slowly, to notice what resonates, to make choices based on alignment rather than pressure. When you stop comparing, you stop rushing. And when you stop rushing, you begin to live with intention. The 8th rule is this: honor the uniqueness of your journey. Let others walk their paths. Yours does not need to look crowded to be meaningful. Sometimes the quietest paths lead to the deepest peace. Rule 9. Turn solitude into a spiritual practice, not a waiting room. Many people treat solitude as temporary, as something to endure until life becomes full again. This mindset turns your present into a waiting room. You are physically here, but mentally elsewhere, waiting for something to arrive and give permission to be content. Buddhism invites a radical shift. Solitude is not something to get through, it is something to practice. When the Buddha spoke of awakening, he did not describe it as a dramatic event. He described it as a deep seeing into the nature of mind and life, something that happens when attention is steady and honest. Solitude naturally supports this seeing. Living alone gives you direct access to your inner world. No interruptions, no constant negotiation of energy. This makes solitude a powerful spiritual environment, not because it is special, but because it is simple. Ask yourself, how would I treat my time alone if I saw it as sacred? What if this season is not preparation, but the practice itself? You do not need to meditate for hours or follow strict rituals. Turning solitude into a spiritual practice begins with intention. Intention to be present. Intention to observe rather than escape. Intention to meet yourself with curiosity. Daily life becomes the practice. Washing dishes becomes mindfulness. Walking becomes awareness. Sitting quietly becomes insight. Buddhism teaches that awakening is not separate from ordinary life. It happens when you stop dividing moments into meaningful and meaningless, when you stop waiting for something special to happen. Solitude removes many distractions that keep you from seeing clearly. In this space, you begin to notice impermanence more directly. Thoughts arise and pass. Emotions come and go. Moods shift without warning. You realize, not intellectually but experientially, that nothing lasts, and that you are the awareness watching it all. This realization brings freedom. When you see that thoughts are temporary, they lose authority. When you see that emotions move on their own, you stop fearing them. Solitude teaches you not to cling, not to people, not to states of mind, not even to identity. This does not make you cold or detached. It makes you grounded. Many people seek spirituality through books, teachers, or retreats, while overlooking the profound teacher already present in their quiet daily life. Solitude strips life down to its essentials: breath, sensation, awareness. This is where wisdom grows. Living alone becomes a monastery without walls. Instead of thinking, "I am alone because something is missing," you begin to think, "I am alone, and therefore I can see clearly." Clarity is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. The 9th rule asks you to stop treating solitude as a delay. Stop waiting for life to begin elsewhere. This is life. This is the practice. And within this quiet, unremarkable moment lies everything you need to cultivate peace, understanding, and deep inner stability. Rule 10. Let wholeness come from within, not from another life. The final rule is the most important and the most misunderstood. Happiness does not arrive when your life looks different. It arrives when your relationship with this life changes. Many people believe that wholeness will come later, when circumstances improve, when companionship appears, when life feels more complete from the outside. Buddhism gently turns this belief inward. It teaches that wholeness is not assembled. It is recognized. You are not a half waiting to be completed. Living alone often exposes the belief that something essential is missing. But when you sit with this feeling long enough, without trying to fix it, a deeper truth begins to reveal itself. The sense of lack is not proof of incompleteness. It is simply the mind searching for certainty. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from identification, believing we are the stories our thoughts create. I am alone, therefore I am lacking. I am alone, therefore I am behind. These are thoughts, not truths. Ask yourself quietly, what if nothing is missing? What if this moment is already whole? When you stop seeking wholeness outside yourself, you stop dividing life into before and after. You stop placing happiness on the other side of change. Instead, you begin to inhabit the present more fully. This does not mean you stop desiring connection. Buddhism does not reject relationship. It rejects dependence. When wholeness comes from within, relationships become expressions of fullness, not attempts to fill emptiness. You begin to relate from stability rather than need, from clarity rather than fear, from presence rather than expectation. Living alone can teach you this in a way few other conditions can. Without constant reflection from others, you learn to stand in your own awareness. You discover that peace does not require agreement, validation, or companionship. It requires honesty. Wholeness feels quiet. It does not announce itself. It feels like ease in your own body, like comfort in silence, like not needing to prove that your life is enough. The Buddha did not promise a life without difficulty. He promised freedom from unnecessary suffering, and much suffering comes from believing that life must look a certain way before it can be lived fully. The 10th rule is an invitation to stop searching elsewhere for permission to be at peace. You are allowed to feel complete now, not because everything is perfect, but because nothing essential is missing. Living alone can be one of life's most powerful teachers when met with awareness, compassion, and patience. If these reflections brought you calm or clarity, let them guide your days gently. For more peaceful teachings on mindfulness, solitude, and inner freedom, consider subscribing to Mindfulness. Your presence helps us share calm and wisdom with others around the world. Thank you for listening. May you be peaceful. May you be present. May you be free.